former Alabama player. He was a great player back in the 60s, was part of some great teams at the University of Alabama, and he was also spent 24 years as the sidelines reporter for the University of Alabama. Jerry Duncan, I hope you're doing well, sir. Welcome back in the game in T-Town.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm in Birmingham right now, but I'll be in Tuscaloosa tomorrow afternoon at 2:30, believe me.
No doubt. And this is a big one that many of us circle, even though it's lost a little bit of luster over the years.
Well, it has, Ryan. But I tell you, this is one of those games. I can't speak for what happens today, but I'm sure back in our day, as you well remember, we had everything we had was every time we played Tennessee, it was a fight, and every time we played them, the intensity level was turned up, the attitude was turned up, the assistant coaches worked a little bit harder. I remember Howard Snellenberger was the coach that was in charge of scouting Tennessee, and normally we would go out on Sundays and just do a little running to loosen up after the game we had on Saturday. But the Sunday before the Tennessee game, we went out and actually did some work on the game plan. So it was it was really, really important. And of course, Coach Bryant, I guess a lot of that probably started, at Kentucky when Coach Bryant, I think their team won, I don't know what year it was, but they won a Southeastern Conference championship up there, first time ever. But they never beat Tennessee. They tied Tennessee 3-3, and I think that Coach Bryant never forgot that, and it was always a battle against Tennessee.
Did he put that point of emphasis on this game more than the other games? Could you feel it as a player putting the emphasis, the importance of this game with talking about
Absolutely,
Coach Bryant? Okay.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Now you'll always be, you always say, well, it's just another game. It's the next game, and but let me tell you something. It's just what I just got through saying there. I mean, everything that week of the Tennessee game, everything was faster. Everything there was more. It was more spirited. The tackling. We always went out in pads. Most time we went out in pads. Sometimes we went out in shorts and just shoulder pads on Mondays, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays were really tough practices most of the time, but they were even tougher the week of the Tennessee game. That's just the way it was, and you could I played 64, 5, and 6, and of course I was there. My freshman year when you couldn't play as a freshman, and I was redshirted in '63, so I saw it for 5 years there, the intensity level and the way things happened for Tennessee. And of course, Coach, we had Coach Goosetree was from Tennessee, and then of course Ken Donahue, who came over from Mississippi State as our defensive coordinator in 1964. He played at Tennessee, and that and Coach Goosetree is the one that started the tradition of lighting up a cigar after a Tennessee victory, and I think that still holds true today. I'm sure it's some kind of an NCAA violation, but they probably get clearance for that or make some kind of an exception to it. But I just can't believe, Ryan, what I can't believe about this game. I can't believe that Alabama is a 35 or whatever it is. I heard somebody say 34, 35-point favorite. That's just, when I think about Alabama, Tennessee, I just can't believe that we're that much of a favorite or we're that much better than they are. Now, I hope we are, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, Coach Stalling said the same thing yesterday. He said, I never thought I'd live to see this today, that Alabama was a 36-point favorite over Tennessee. I was on in Knoxville earlier this week, and Jerry, they were talking about, forget about trying to beat Alabama. They were asking the question if you think Tennessee can even score on Alabama.
I don't know. I'm just not a good person to talk to about stuff like that because of all. I was there, so after we remember the game in '65. Of course, you may not remember, but that game ended in a 7-7 tie, and Kenny Stabler, Steve Sloan had gotten hurt, and he came off the bench. We had fumbled 2 or 3 times inside the 5-yard line. Game's tied 7-7, 36 seconds to go. We got the ball on the 6-yard line. We're trying to get a field goal team in. Stabler gets confused and throws the ball out of bounds on fourth down to stop the clock, and the game ends in a tie. And I mean, we were just devastated. It was just because we had played pretty well. You know, we'd fumbled the ball, but we'd still played pretty well. And daggone if we didn't end up tying the game, and then we go up there in '66 for the game that was played in the rain, and we had a really good team, and Tennessee had a good team, and we end up behind 10-0 at the half, and you know, I guess everybody knows, and we came back and won it 11-10, but it was just that those are the kind of Tennessee Alabama games I remember, and then after that, I think 67, 8, 9, 70 Tennessee won. They had a 4-game win streak in there where they beat us, and then that's when Coach Bryant decided that he was going to coach for a long time, and so I think in '71, I know I was on the sidelines the entire time, and I believe we beat them 11 years in a row. I believe 71 through 81. I believe.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Which nobody and really until nobody could believe that we had that kind of a run against Tennessee. I mean, I think the longest win streak before that had been 7. So. And I believe this one tomorrow will be what? This one tomorrow will be, if we can do it, it'll be 11.
It will be.
So I'm kind of flabbergasted about it. To be honest with you, I just can't. And listen, you know, we've got a good football team. Coach Saban, he's just fabulous. They got a great staff and great players. And you know, I think if we're mentally ready to play, I think we'll be fine because I know we're better than they are. Or at least I think we're a lot better than they are physically. If our mental state is fine, then I won't worry about it. But I worry about our mental state because everybody reads about how good they are and how many points they've scored against Mississippi and Vanderbilt. When you know that just doesn't mean anything in a game like this, in my opinion. Of course, I'm old school now. You got to understand that.
Well, you're probably taught by one of the best.
Well,
Jerry, I'd love to know. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
I just know that Tennessee, it means more for some reason. Now, I can't tell you what it is. I think it's just tradition. It started back that way. I have a good friend of mine named Dan Brooks, who was a defensive line coach at Tennessee for 15 years with Philip Fulmer. He's from my hometown, Sparta, North Carolina. He's about 7 years younger than I am. He ended up being the defensive coach for the last 5 or 6 years, defensive line coach for Dabo up at Clemson, and he retired after they beat us in the championship game. And I was with him this summer up in Sparta, and we talked about it. We talked about the Tennessee Alabama rivalry, and he said make no mistake, Alabama and Tennessee do not like each other whatsoever. That wasn't exactly the word to use, but that's, and I think the feeling is mutual.
When you go back to the game, the famous or infamous tie game, however you want to look at it, and you talked about Kenny Stabler and thought it was third down, threw it out of bounds, stop the clock. When you look at Coach Bryant, how mad was he after that game?
Well, he was mad enough that he knocked a 10-foot steel door down. It was the door to our dressing room, and the sliding light up, bless his heart. He was responsible for getting back and unlocking the door, and all the. You can imagine what was going on the field. I mean, people were devastated. I mean, you know, coaches were upset, and he didn't get back to the dressing room door to get the dressing room door open, and we're all lined up, you know, waiting to go in the dressing room, and all of a sudden here comes Coach Bryant. He said a couple of words I won't repeat, and then he said, you know, get out of the way, and he put his shoulder to the door, knocked it on. It was hanging on one hinge when I walked by. So that'll give you some kind of idea. But I will say this: he got us in the dressing room that day, and he told us. He said, "Look, I just want y'all to know this." He said, "If I had kept the coaching staff and myself, and if we had stayed in Tuscaloosa, and we had sent y'all up here by yourself, y'all would have won the game." He said, it's very typical Coach Bryant. He took all the blame, and and we should have won the game, you know. But after that, you know, we rolled. I mean, you know, I'm not going to go into all that, but we ended up winning a national championship that year. So, but we had to have a little luck along the way. But we did.
You played there in North Carolina, for folks that may or may not know, Sonny Smith, that certainly we know in this state. But I was also looking through my research as I was preparing for the interview. You were signed as a running back. I mean, has there ever been a running back signed out of North Carolina that moved to offensive line? I know it was the tackle eligible pass, but have we ever recruited a running back that went to offensive line here in Tuscaloosa?
I don't know. Oh, Lord, that's a long story. But I was a 165-pound halfback when I signed with Alabama, and I gained a little weight along the way. And to be quite honest with you, just the honest truth is I wasn't very talented, and so I gained a little weight. They moved me to fullback, then they moved me to a blocking back, and then they moved me to rover on defense. I played a little linebacker. Then they moved me to a guard, if you can imagine. And one day I'm running out on the field. This was my sophomore season, and Coach Bryant stopped me and he said, "I'm going to go down there and tell Coach Snellenberger I'm moving you to tackle today." And I said, "Yes, sir." And I got about 20 yards away from him, and he said, "Hey, Duncan," he said, "the next time I move you, it's going to be back to North Carolina." So, maybe that was a little bit of more incentive for being able to play tackle. But I ended up with a great career and played with great players, and we were just so blessed and so fortunate to be on those teams, and with guys that we still get together once a year and have a little reunion, and it was wonderful. We had great, you know, Coach Bryant, and we had some great assistant coaches, and it was a good time, but it was tough. But that's what it's supposed to be.
I want to walk you back to the 66 Orange Bowl, I believe it was the Sugar Bowl, right, against Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. I was given a note here from a historian. He said on the first play of the 66 Orange Bowl versus Nebraska, he called a pass. Need to ask him about this game. Ended up being for the national title after Arkansas lost to LSU in the Cotton Bowl. Michigan State lost at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. He said he has a wonderful story about a pregame warm-ups when they found out.
Well, I don't know exactly, but that was the greatest football game that I ever played in during my entire career at Alabama. It was the greatest team we played. I'm talking about from a personnel standpoint. Nebraska probably outweighed us 25 to 30 pounds a man. The guy I played against that night was a guy named Walt Barnes. He was a 6'5", about 240 pounds. He was a second-round draft choice for the Washington Redskins the next year, and we opened it. We actually changed our entire game plan, and this was Coach Bryant. I mean, he just changed. He said we're going to throw from. We got to score points. We got to throw the football. He said we're backed up. We're going to throw the football. So anyway, we ended up running the tackle eligible, which was a play we'd had a lot of success with during the season. We ended up running it the first two plays of the game. And so what I told Sloan after over on the sidelines, I said, "Steve, why didn't you tell me you were going to call a tackle eligible play on?" He said, "Well, Coach Bryant told me not to tell you we were going to run it the first two plays." And I said, "Well, why did he do that?" He said, "Well, he was afraid you wouldn't come out of the huddle." And but anyway, it was a great. We had the night game, just like you said there. Then the first and second teams got beat in the it had been the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and then that Nebraska was undefeated. See, we were 8-1-1 because of that tie with Tennessee and the loss to Georgia, but anyway, it just worked out. We like I said, we had to have some luck along the way, and of course Nebraska moved to, they moved from 3, and they were number 3, and we were the 4th ranked team in the country. So it was a fantastic ball game. I tell you, I can't tell you how tough it was. They were just a really, really good team. That was a game, Ryan. Just so you'll know, we onside kicked 3 times. Onside kick 3 times, and we got it twice, and we kept Nebraska on the field. Their defense was on the field so much that they finally in the late in the third quarter they just basically gave out, but they had a great offensive team. They scored just about every time they got the football. But anyway, that was a good one. That was a nice one to remember.
You think 66 was better than 65 as a team?
They were. It was. Yeah, they were. They were. Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. They were. We the 66 team. We lost 2 or 3 guys that graduated, but we had. Stabler moved up. Stabler was a sophomore on that 65 team. He moved up. He was a junior, and he had really improved, got a lot better. We had great receivers. We had Perkins on one side, Dennis Holm on the other, and a good experienced offensive line. And we'd all played together, for the 65 season. So, yeah, it was. Coach Bryant said at that time it was the best team he'd ever seen. And of course, now he had a lot of great teams in the 70s. So. I'm sure he might take that back after some of those teams he put on the field in the 70s.
Final question as we're talking to Jerry Duncan. Can you share your side of the story about the deer rifle and Smokey walking through the corner of the end zone? I mean, I want to hear your side of the story here.
Well, listen, I had so much fun on the sidelines, particularly in the 70s with Coach Bryant, and that was just a thrill of a lifetime, being able to work on the radio and being with him, and we were up there in Knoxville, and old Smokey, had that bloodhound or whatever that hound is that they carry around, and I was down on the far end of the field, and I don't know whether it was John Forney, Doug Layton. Somebody said something about that. I'd see them bringing out old Smokey down there, and I said, yeah. And I don't know what Doug may have said this, but somebody said it, and I said, yeah. If I had my 30-06, I could drop him from here or something like that. And that story has carried on for a long time. And
well, we like to share it. I don't know if it's true or not, but we've been sharing it all week long.
I can tell you it's true.
Okay, good. Well, that's not the only incident that you had with a deer rifle. I think if I'm reading correctly, 79, you were trying to get to the Florida game, and you'd been back from a hunting trip, if I'm not mistaken, with some security guards.
Where do you get all this information
Steve
from?
Townsend. Steve Townsend.
Oh, Steve Townsend. Sorry, rascal. Yeah, well, now that was a little bit of a different story. I don't even want to get into that. That was a 25 pistol. It was a little old bitty small gun, and I'd been on a dove hunt, and before the dove hunt, you could bring a pistol or something and have some target practice. So I put it in a shaving kit. It's a really small little old gun, and I put it in a shaving kit, and it worked its way down to the bottom of the shaving kit. So I just walked around with it, and we'd been to several games, but what we'd always done before, we'd always checked our bags at the airport. So we get out here to Doug and John and I were going to the Florida game, and we were running late getting to the airport. So we ran put this stuff through the scanner, and this daggone lady back there, she said, "There's a gun in this shaving kit." I said, "No." I said, "You know what? I bet that is." Yeah, I said, "Just hold that thing for me, and I'll pick it up when I come back through here." Well, man, here comes the Birmingham Police Department. They called the FBI.
Wow.
John and Doug came over and said, "Well, we're going to go ahead and get on the plane. Maybe you make it. Maybe if you're still in jail when we get back, we'll come get you."
Wow.
So anyway, the FBI guy finally figured I wasn't going to. Thank God it was back in the 70s and not now. But anyway, it worked out fine.
No doubt. Hey, well, listen, thanks again for helping us preserve the Alabama history. We think this game means a lot. It'll be the 100th meeting between Alabama and Tennessee on Saturday, and certainly looking forward to having you in the stadium. I appreciate
absolutely. Thank you so much for calling, and I will. I hope you guys have a great weekend and roll tide.